Okay, we can start. Let's dedicate any merit to known from all sources and times to all beings, each without exception attain the ultimate for themselves. So today we're going to talk about the 16 stages of insight, which is a Theravada teaching. And if we have time, we'll show we'll show how mindfulness develops the 7 factors of enlightenment leading up to the moment of realization. So the 16 stages of insight is a Theravada teaching. When I first did Vipassana in Thailand, they gave you a little booklet right at the beginning, which I thought was sort of strange because it's I thought it was better to just meditate not knowing what's going to happen rather than possibly having some idea, and then every time something happens, you wonder, is this stage 7? Is this stage 9? You know. But in any case, the Vipassana people still give out the little booklets. Uh, so so I'm going to talk about the 16 stages of insight, um, uh, how it unfolds when you're doing it in a retreat in a monastery. But I'll also talk a little bit about how it unfolds when you're doing it in the world on your own, because there's some very important points to be made about that. So the 16 stages of insight are driven by mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness. Uh, if you do Mahamudra or some other practice, things will unfold a bit differently. But if you practice mindfulness, such as in Vipassana or insight meditation, uh, this is the natural unfolding. So the first 3 stages of insight everybody has. The first stage of insight is you have a body and mind. I think you all have realized that by now. I know it's a deep teaching, but we all have a body and mind. And the second stage of insight is we notice interaction between the body and mind. So when something is going on with your body, it might affect your mind, your mood, and so on. And if something is going on, so it goes both ways. Things in the mind affect the body, things in the body affect the mind. We all notice that at some point. And the third stage of insight is suffering, where we notice suffering. So if you can remember what life was like when you were 3 or 4 or 5, what happened was every once in a while you would get a really strong desire, and most of the time you couldn't fulfill that desire and you would suffer. Um, uh, so, so pretty much everybody knows that they have a mind and body, knows that there's interaction between the mind and body, and knows that suffering can happen. Now, in worldly life, when severe suffering happens, such as loss of a loved one, people look for some way to process that, some way to work through that. And they might go to the priest or the minister, or they might go get some counseling, or they might go to the bookstore to the self-help section and try to find something that would help them. And then as time goes on and the urgency of uh, resolving the suffering reduces, then they basically move on with life until the next suffering happens. Uh, every once in a while in the history of a being, and it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while in the history of being, there will be suffering, and the person will not be content with pre-digested answers that they can get from other places. And they will start to wonder, is there anything more? Is this life as I know it with suffering and sometimes severe suffering, is that all there is, or is there something more? And some desire to explore that will arise. Now, humans being what they are, they don't necessarily enter any kind of path right away. They always look for the easy way out. So maybe they try to find something that will give it to you. I know one of my friends didn't want to actually do any work to awaken, and he found a group that you didn't have to do any work. You just joined the group, and after a certain amount of time, grace descended on you, and you awoke, and it was quite painless. And in the meantime, you could do whatever you want, you know. Whether it worked or not, I don't know, but I don't think so. So to get from the third to the fourth stage is very difficult. First of all, you have to want to know if there is something beyond ordinary life as you knew it, and you have to be willing to go look for it, and you have to be unwilling to accept uh, pre-digested answers from other sources. And Namgyal Rinpoche said on several occasions that the place between stage 3 of insight and stage 4, he when I heard him, he called that no man's land, and it's no man's land because you don't really know whether there is something that can be achieved, and you don't really know if there is something that can be achieved, you don't really know where to find it, and yet you don't want to go back because you are fed up with ordinary life as it is, with its suffering and so on. And so really you're in a very, very, very difficult state. And he also said at one point that if someone has no merit stored, that it might take like a year of mindfulness practice to awaken. When I was in the monastery in Thailand, and various people would come and do retreats, uh, they would normally get through that stage between 3 and 4 within a matter of 1 or 2 weeks. So most of us do have some store of merit, and it is possible to make this leap from 3 to 4, and but it requires the practice of mindfulness, and it requires some ability to keep going and to not quit. And normally that ability to keep going and not quit is triggered by the degree of suffering that motivated us to do this in the first place. I was with one of my teachers once, and there was a guy there who had never been there before, and the teacher said, you know, what brings you here today? And the guy said, well, uh, my wife left me. I got downsized from my job. I no longer have a job. My house burnt down. My dog died, and a few other things. And The teacher said, "Wonderful, you're here." And that is sometimes what it takes for people to become motivated to become a seeker. But if you persist and you practice mindfulness, and with this vague question in mind, what's it all about, or who am I, or is this all there is to life, or some form of a seeking question, then eventually you will reach the fourth stage of insight. Now, this is not going to be an intellectual discussion of the stages where I tell you the name of each stage and things like that. You can get that in the Theravada literature. I find the names of the stages to be absolutely, completely unhelpful. And what I'm going to give you is sort of the overall pattern. But having said that, I'll just violate what I just said and tell you the name of the fourth stage, which is weak knowledge of suffering. Now, the reason that's not helpful is that it doesn't mean anything. Weak knowledge of suffering, what does that mean? But what happens, the realization of the fourth stage is basically the realization that life as you knew it doesn't really work. There's no possibility in life as you knew it, living in the world, of finding anything lasting and meaningful. And so two things happen. One is you're motivated to go on practicing mindfulness and seeking. The other is that some certainty that you can't go back. You really don't want to go back to ordinary life as it was, with its possibility of suffering and not having any real insight into what life is all about, what life and death are about, what reality is about. So, so call it what you will. You're now at a place where you're going to move forward as a seeker. Now, technically, this is not yet the path. From the fourth stage on, the next few stages are not the path. But what happens in a retreat is you go to the monastery, you get the instruction in the practice of mindfulness, and then you go to your little space and you practice it. And what happens is you go through an adjustment period where you adjust from living in the world and doing whatever you want, whenever you want, and so on, to a more structured um, life where you sit down and practice mindfulness. Maybe you do mindfulness while you're walking, and you do that all day long. So there's some time of accommodation. It may be very short, it may be 2 or 3 days, it may be a bit longer, but one has to accommodate to this new lifestyle of practicing mindfulness and not just going out and doing everything you want to do. And when you do that, you watch the mind and body mindfully, and as once you achieve some sort of adjustment to this new lifestyle and this practice of mindfulness, then you're finding it interesting, and so some focus and some concentration arises. And the side effect of focus and concentration is feeling really good, even to the point of bliss. But most people don't experience too much bliss at this point. but they feel really good and they find it really, really interesting to sit down and watch what goes on in their mind and watch how that affects what goes on in their body and watch everything that goes on in the body. They find it real interesting. And at this stage, they want to get hold of all of their friends and tell them, oh, you got to come and do this right away. It's the best thing ever, and so at that point, meditators are not allowed to write letters or make telephone calls. Otherwise, they would be trying to rope in all of their friends to get going on this because it's so wonderful. So the stage where everything is wonderful and interesting and you feel really good, unfortunately, doesn't last. What happens is you keep looking into the mind and the body, and you start to notice that it's layer upon layer upon layer of things happening. Thoughts arise, you don't know where they come from, emotions arise, things in the body arise, and uh, after a while, you have a genuine insight that what's going on in the mind and the body is way too much to ever work through and figure out what's what. There's just too many things going on. They seem perhaps to be a little bit related to each other, but you have a genuine insight that it's not going to be possible to unsort this. There's a famous sutra where a man in the time of the Buddha goes and meditates and practices mindfulness. And after a while, he comes back to the Buddha and he said, Lord, there's a tangle within and a tangle without. Who can untangle this tangle? And the Buddha gives him some teaching on untangling the tangle. And then he says, but to the Buddha, oh, but Lord, it's so hard. And the Buddha said, yes, it's hard, but there are those who do it anyhow, and gives more teaching. And then we get back again to Lord, it's so hard. But so so this is so that man had the insight that we're talking about right now, that to untangle the tangle of everything going on in the mind and the body is it's not possible for you. And so if you're in a monastery at this point, you roll up the bamboo mat you're sleeping on. It's called the rolling up the mat stage and going home. And you go to the teacher and say, well, this is wonderful. I'm glad you're teaching it. I'm glad there are those who can do it, but it's too much for me. I have to go home. And the teacher says, well, no, this is a sign of progress. You don't need to go home. Just keep meditating and it will change. Now, when you go through this in the world without a teacher and you're practicing mindfulness on your own, this stage is a real problem because you can simply quit. You've had a genuine insight that it's not possible for you to succeed at this, so you quit. And in the modern world, in the West, there's a unlimited number of things you can go to. You can take up crystals, or you can take up astrology, or you can take up Tai Chi or Qigong, or you can work on your chakras, and you can just, every time you reach a stage, you can just stop and go to something different. So it's a real problem. So if you take away one thing from this talk, it should be that uh, when you progress on the spiritual path, there will be times based on genuine insight that you feel like you have to quit, and don't. Just keep going and things will change. Now, I don't remember what number this stage is. it might be 9, but the number doesn't matter. But what happens is if you take the teacher's advice and you decide to keep going, then this is what's called the beginning of the actual path. Everything up to now, from 3 to 4 and from 4 to this stage, is the path leading to the path. Now you enter the actual path. So you sit down and you look at your mind and body and you practice mindfulness. And and as you go into it deeper and deeper, the fact that it will be hopeless to sort this out becomes more and more apparent. So hope vanishes. And as hope vanishes, despair sets in because you can't go back and you can't really go forward either. There's a Zen koan that relates to this where it said a man swallows a red hot iron ball and it gets stuck in his throat and he can't spit it out and he can't swallow it. That pretty much is a description of this stage. You can't, there's no hope going forward, but you can't go back. So despair sets in. And so as you then look deeper and deeper into what's going on in the mind and the body, the hopelessness of it just increases. And when the hopelessness increases, despair increases. So in this stage, which I believe is the 10th stage, at the beginning, you still have a little hope and you're not in despair, but by the end of the 10th stage, hope is completely absent and despair is absolutely total. It's like you're in this ocean of despair from which there's no escape. When I first went through this in the 60s, I was living in the world and I lived in a house with a bunch of other Namdak students. And none of us had had any teaching on these stages of insight. So when hope vanished for me and despair set in, then all these wonderful, loving people decided every day to try cure me. So I would come home from work, and they would have something special prepared that was going to cure my despair. And they came up with something every night for several months. It was really an incredible thing to watch. The only one I can remember was one day I came home and they had cooked nut loaf for supper. And it was a really, really, really wonderful nut loaf, but it didn't cure despair. So just a little tip to save you time in the future. When you're deep in despair and somebody's trying to cheer you up every day, just tell them don't bother with the nut loaf. It doesn't work. You know, you can do all the other ones and see how you get along. So at the end of what I'm going to call the 10th stage, hope has vanished, despair has set in, and it's total. So then what happens is you carry on with your mindfulness, and one day you're sitting there watching, looking at your mind mindfully, looking at your body mindfully, and you notice a pattern that you noticed before. Now, this isn't taught exactly like this in the teaching, but this is my experience of what happens, is that you notice something that you've seen before, and a flicker of interest arises. That's the beginning of the I'm going to call the 11th stage. So now, when you look at the mind and body, every once in a while you'll notice some pattern that you've seen before, and that flicker of interest will be there. And as time goes on and you notice more and more patterns, in your mind and body that you've seen before, interest becomes, you start to get quite interested in this practice of looking at the mind and body, and uh, that interest is what creates uh, in sequence the 7 factors of enlightenment. And I'll talk about that a bit later. So what happens then as you go through this stage and interest arises? Uh, Basically, uh, it almost starts to have an element of fun to the practice because you're interested in it. You're seeing these things. You're looking at your mind and body, and so at the beginning of the 11th stage, hope is totally absent. Despair is fills the entire universe, and you don't like it. At the end of this stage, uh, hope is totally absent. Despair is absolutely total everywhere, and you don't mind at all. You reach a point where you're totally okay with the fact that there is now and will never be any hope. And there is now and there will always be this ocean of despair that you live in, but you're totally okay with it. And that is the so-called jumping point, where if your being is mature, you will take what appears to you to be a leap into the unknown, and you will attain one or more of the stages of enlightenment. If you attain one or more of the stages of enlightenment, that's called the path moment. There's a stage mentioned just before that that's called the change of lineage stage. And what that means is that uh, what you have looked to since beginningless time for your happiness is your lineage. And that lineage is the lineage of uh, trying to get the things you want, trying to get more of what you like, trying to avoid the things you don't like, trying to find things that are interesting, trying to find ways to spend your time that you like. That has been your ultimate lineage since beginningless time. And at this moment, just before awakening, your lineage changes to uh, to what I would call the lineage of truth. That now you change your lineage to, now I want to know what's what for myself. I don't want anybody else to tell me what's what. I want to know it for myself from my own insight. And then you have the next stage, which is the actual moment of awakening. It's usually called the path moment. And it's only a moment. And in that moment, you have a glimpse of ultimate reality, but not through your senses. In the Diamond Sutra, uh, when the Buddha is conversing with Subhuti, he asks Subhuti about stream entrance. And Subhuti said, one who is called a stream entrant is one who pays no attention to sight, sound, taste, touch, all those things. So Subhuti is referring to the fact that your glimpse of reality is outside of the realm of the 6 senses. And it only lasts a moment. And when that moment is over, you go to the next moment, uh, which is I think called the fruit. And at that point, you're flooded with bliss. and then you go to a moment where you come back into your normal consciousness, but now having been transformed by this great insight in the path moment. And then if it's a stream entry, you might stay in bliss for several days. Are there any questions about any of that so far? Okay, so now I want to talk about what happens when you reach the jumping off point and you don't jump. So what happens in mindfulness practice, you practice mindfulness all day, every day, mindfulness of mind and body, and you go through these stages of insight, and you reach the point where you're at the jumping point. There's nothing more to be done. You can take a leap into the unknown and awaken, and it doesn't happen. Now, if you do this in a Theravada monastery, they will just tell you to keep practicing mindfulness. And I want to make the point that I don't think that's the most efficient thing to do. What happens is if you keep practicing mindfulness, is you go back a few stages, possibly even as far as the fourth stage, and then you move forward from wherever you go back to, and you reach the jumping point again, and you don't jump. So you go back and you keep cycling somewhere between 4 and 11 uh, uh, for a long time. Uh, so so to me, uh, if you reach the jumping point and you don't jump, there must be a cause and condition for that. And according to my own insight and my own experience, the cause and condition for that in most people is that somewhere in their mind, usually in the unconscious, your being has a plan for ultimate happiness in samsara. Maybe if you just have a better partner or more money or a better career or you know, get more sunshine in your life or whatever, somehow you're going to have it made. And that plan, uh, if you take it from the unconscious and bring it into the conscious, it will seem incredibly stupid because those plans are virtually always very unrealistic, you know. And most of the plans involve selective perception, where you focus on the good parts of what you're going to get in this plan, and you ignore all the negative things that might come with it, you know. So 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 when I was meditating in Thailand, I had an insight that um, what would be better for me at that particular time was to stop being a monk, to go back to the West, and to live in the world and start exploring uh, my secret plan to have ultimate, lasting, eternal happiness in samsara. And you know, the problem with any lasting plan to have ultimate, permanent happiness in samsara is it completely forgets that one day you're going to die. You know, and we skip over that. You know, and that's one of the aspects of the unrealistic nature of any plan to have eternal happiness in samsara. So for some people, it's better to go back into the world and to start pursuing some of these unrealistic goals. And in doing so, doing it mindfully, you gain insight into them, and then you work through them. It's always been my feeling that if people clearly reach the jumping point and don't jump, that they should really use every technique possible, including the questioning technique, to find out what their secret plan is and then to explore it. And then, having explored it and have some insight into it, then go back to the practice of mindfulness. So it always felt to me like it would be a good idea for every spiritual seeker to do a month of vipassana every 3 or 4 years, in case they had worked through what they needed to work through and they were now ready to take a leap. Vipassana, or the practice of mindfulness of mind and body, is a very efficient way to get you to the jumping point, and then you find out whether you're going to take a leap or not. Any questions up to now? And one thing I should say is that it's my impression that no being will ever take a leap into the unknown if there's any other possibility that might work. It's very important to understand that your being will not take a leap, what it perceives to be a leap into the unknown, if there's any possibility at all that there's some other way to achieve lasting happiness. I was with Namdak one day and we were talking about this point, and he said, people very often are afraid of what they perceive to be a leap into the unknown. He said, but in the history of the universe so far, when anyone has taken that leap, nothing bad has ever happened. So the fear is not well founded. Nothing bad is going to happen. You don't see a lot of people around who have taken the leap and attained all this bliss and insight, and then started complaining about it. Well, they stuck me with all this bliss, and that wasn't part of the bargain. I wasn't looking for that. You don't see that. When people take the leap and awaken, they pretty much like it. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the 7 factors of enlightenment and how the practice of mindfulness creates them. The 7 factors, number 1 is mindfulness, uh, then investigation, energy, rapture or happiness, calm, concentration, equanimity. So these 7 factors are present at the time of enlightenment, all 7 of them, and they are balanced. And they also are pretty much the life experience of people after they're enlightened, that they have these 7 factors. So mindfulness, I think we talk about that all the time. I think everybody knows what that is. And we practice mindfulness of mind and body, or the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Now, investigation can also be translated as curiosity. So, uh, so when you're meditating and something arises, if you're practicing mindfulness, you can just notice it and then go back to the object of concentration. That's an absence of investigation or an absence of curiosity. But when investigation or curiosity, that factor is present, when something arises, then you'll look at it and you'll think, oh, what's that? What about that? and you will have the urge to look into it deeper until you fully understand it. So investigation or curiosity is one of the factors of enlightenment. Energy, the word that the Pali or Sanskrit word for energy can also mean effort. And when you practice meditation in the beginning, you have to make an effort, which means that you're supplying the energy for the practice. But as you progress, because of the interest and so on that you're taking in things, the effort becomes effortless because energy is present. So if you consider a teenager and they're given the option to clean out the basement or play a video game, they have no energy to clean out the basement. But the moment they play the video game, all of a sudden they have lots of energy for it, and they can play it for long periods of time and not get fatigued. So energy is one of the factors of enlightenment. Now, the next one is, in this translation, is rapture or happiness. It's a form of bliss. Rapture doesn't really express it. Happiness is too weak. It's better than happiness. It's basically feeling really good in mind or body. And the next one is calm. You don't attain the moment of enlightenment when you're stressed. Your mind and body attain great calm as you reach the jumping point. The next one is concentration. Concentration is just really the quality of being with whatever's happening effortlessly without looking for some improvement. And the final one is equanimity. Equanimity is not reacting to ups and downs. So you're meditating, something good happens. You just look at it, but you don't get carried away by, oh, that's so wonderful, this is happening. Something bad happens, you just look at it, you don't get carried away by, oh, this is so awful. So equanimity is the seventh factor. Now, when you reach the 11th stage of insight, at the beginning of the 11th stage of insight, hope is totally absent, despair is totally present, and you don't like it. And so you continue on anyhow, practicing your mindfulness. And then, as I mentioned before, sooner or later you will see a pattern arise in your mind and body that you've seen before, and a flicker of interest will arise. And you then see it again, and so you start to wonder what's going on here. How does this same pattern arise, and what causes it to arise? How does it go away? And so curiosity and investigation are created. As you become more interested in what's going on, you're watching your mind and body, then you're less energy is required. It doesn't take a great effort to keep going. You have natural energy because of your interest in what you're watching. As your concentration and all of these things happen, you start to feel better. PT arises. As you start to recognize that you're actually getting somewhere. Um, uh, then the stress of not getting anywhere goes away, and calm sets in. Your concentration arises because of interest. The more you start to recognize patterns and see things, and maybe once in a while get an insight into what caused something to arise or what caused something to go away, concentration becomes naturally present. And as you do all these things, you have insight into um, that there will be ups, there will be downs, but they don't really affect very much, and equanimity will set in. So the 7 factors of enlightenment will all be created during the 11th stage of insight, and the start of that is a flicker of interest that arises in recognizing something that you've seen before, and you start to realize that there's some uh, pattern to this, and maybe if you look into it, it will start to make sense. And so curiosity and all the other things naturally arise. Now, the purpose of mindfulness, one of the purposes of it is to balance these 7 factors. 3 of them are passive, 3 of them are active, and it's your practice of mindfulness will balance them. So, at the moment of enlightenment, if it occurs, all 7 factors will be present and they will be balanced, and that is what will make it possible for you to attain the moment of enlightenment. Now, notice that nowhere in these 7 factors of enlightenment does it mention knowledge. If you go through this process of the stages of insight, it doesn't require that you know ahead of time these stages of insight. They will unfold naturally. They will unfold in sequence, and it doesn't matter whether you know about them or not. It also doesn't matter whether you know Buddhist theory or other spiritual theory. Um, it doesn't matter whether you understand some particular point of Dharma and so on. So you should realize when you walk the path that knowledge is a two-way thing. That on the one hand, we need some knowledge to understand what the path is and how to practice it, and maybe broader knowledge to understand the context in which the spiritual path occurs. But at the same time, that very same knowledge can then become a barrier if you're going through the stages of insight and you start asking questions, trying to relate your experience to some theory you've heard in the teaching you've received. That will actually be a barrier. That will actually be a block. So knowledge, knowledge, once your practice really gets going, is highly overrated. Uh, that these all the various ways that the path can unfold are occur naturally and don't require you to know ahead of time how they unfold. And that's true in other forms of other paths that lead to awakening. Um, uh, we need the knowledge to understand what this particular path is, and is this path for us? And we need the knowledge of how to practice it if we decide it's for us. And beyond that, uh, you should be very suspicious of any quest for knowledge beyond that. It just isn't needed. you know. Yeah. Having said that, next week I'll give you a bunch of knowledge, which, you know, uh, don't do anything with it, but, you know, we'll do it. Okay, any questions up to now? Darlene?
I'm interested in this curiosity, sort of for two parts of it. Lots of times it seems like curiosity ends up being very much of a distraction, certain parts of our practice, when we're actually kind of practicing to collect the mind. So I'm interested. I'm just interested in that. Seems like there would be some skillfulness that would have to be developed to sort of recognize where we are in our practice, and when to.
So let me address that part first.
Yeah, thank you.
So curiosity and investigation are a factor of enlightenment when it's when it's when it's trying to answer the question, what's really going on here? Curiosity when you know, say you're meditating and something happens, and then you're curious. Oh, is that thing that they talked about in the teaching last week, or is that the Dharmakaya, or is that you know, this or that or the other? Curiosity about theory is a hindrance when you're actually practicing. So the curiosity we're referring to, the investigation we're referring to, is the actual reality that you're presented with that's going on in your mind and body.
Perfect. That was my second part of my question. Thank you.
What was the second part of your question?
About curiosity regarding knowledge, etc. So curiosity regarding theory, you're saying can be a hindrance. Yeah. So you covered it. Thank you.
I have a question about this.
Yeah.
So here, so here you are giving talks on paths and awareness and lots of knowledge, and this is really, I think, well, really helpful to me. And yet we come to the place where language fails us. It seems to me that our language cannot describe sort of what the ineffable is. And we nevertheless have these mediums like poetry or maybe music or something like this to help transcend or go past that limit of knowledge. And yet with words, we listen to you and try to understand, but we have nothing but the words and concepts to go on, and then we have to sort of go beyond that. And yet we do have this limited structure of words, prose, to make the canons and all these Buddhist and Bibles and whatnot. Well, we have all this stuff, and yet we have to realize that this is just limited. This is not it. This is not the I don't know, the experience of biting into a brownie, fudge brownie or something like this. That can't be described. It has to be. And this seems to be a very difficult place to be in, to be going through these stages of insight. This is frustrating. I mean,
Yeah, well said. And in terms of expressing things in words, you did a great job. That's the dilemma, is that, you know, we have to use our mind and body and language and all of these things as our tools to somehow try to get us to the point where we can go beyond those things. And so there's nothing wrong with words. There's nothing wrong with concepts. There's nothing wrong with knowledge if we use it as the basis from which we move forward along the spiritual path. And it's good if we have a little bit of understanding that that words don't actually get to the point, the actual point. The Buddha said in the Diamond Sutra very clearly, words cannot express reality. What words express is not reality. But he said that using words, you know, and that's our dilemma, is that that's what we have to work with. So we start off with the words about suffering and the cause of suffering and the path beyond it and so on, and we develop concepts of you know, I'm an unenlightened being. I have to work toward enlightenment. One day I will be an enlightened being. Those are all concepts and so on. That's how it is. That's how it was in the time of the Buddha. You know, the Buddha had some reticence to teach because of this very fact that the truth to which he attained is very subtle and cannot be expressed in words. But then you know, as Tilopa said in the beginning of the Song of Mahamudra, he's talking to Naropa. He says, reality is, Mahamudra is beyond words and concepts. But for you, Naropa, loyal and true, must these words be said. And that's basically sums it up. You know, what we're trying to get at is beyond words and concepts. But for you, a sincere seeker, then we have to use these words to try get us going in that direction. So that apparent dilemma will not be resolved soon. It will remain like that. You know?
Yeah, thank you.
Great thing is that despite all of that, the path works. You know, there are countless beings who have, starting off from words and concepts, have attained full enlightenment. Some of them did it without even having coffee. I don't know how they did that, though. Okay. Unless there's a last comment, we'll stop for today. I don't remember what the next topic will be, but we'll have some topic next week. Yeah. Okay, let's dedicate any merit up to now and from all sources and times to all beings, that each without exception attain the ultimate for themselves. Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.